right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, guys. I'm Dan Baze. Own a little insurance agency here in Lubbock. I've been here for 7 years in the business. My background is not insurance. I came out of the robotics world. I sold robotics in the semiconductor industry for 30 years. I'm in a new career, but I've learned a lot. The agency focuses on ag and commercial insurance. So we do a lot of commercial and a lot of agribusiness. We write wineries all over the state. That's one of our core businesses. We write farm and ranch. I've got a lot of beef operations, things like that. And I've got a lot of small business, and I've got a lot of medium-sized business. You know, this is West Texas. The average business, 20 employees here in Lubbock. So that is what we call very small business, right? So I'm going to talk to you today about just an overview of what insurance types there are that are needed by small businesses, a little bit about the coverages, things like that, okay? Very basic 101, insurance 101. But hopefully it'll give you a groundwork. If you want more detail, please come by the booth. We can talk about all kinds of things, okay? All right, so here's the agenda introduction, which we just did. Types of insurance, we're going to get into the policy types because you're going to hear insurance people talk about different types of policies, BOPs and CPPs and all this. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about the typical coverage levels, which our young lady here was asking me questions on coverage levels. So I'll explain what normal is for business and why those are the normal levels, okay? If you have any questions, shout them out. We got time, and by all means, I want to know. Okay. By the way, I am the veteran owner of the Dan Baze Agency. I never used that. I lived in California for like 25 years. I'm from Lubbock. Okay, I grew up in Lubbock. I wasn't born in Lubbock for some strange reason. My family's been in Texas since 1857. We came down from Missouri down to Lampasas, and then they were farming and moving further and further toward Lubbock. So we ended up in Lubbock, and of course I was born in Oklahoma. So I don't know. What do we do? My dad was in the Army at the time, and I was born at Tinker Air Force Base, so that's what happened. But we're Lubbock folks. We've been around a long time. The business has been here, as I said, for 7 years, and we really, really have specialized in the ag and commercial side, and it's been excellent. And I'm so glad we did, because to be quite honest with you, home and auto right now is terrible. So I'm glad I don't do that. We do that, but I'm glad it's not my core business, because if it was, we'd be hating life right now. Okay? All right, types of insurance. Let's start with the basic general liability. If you have a business, you absolutely have to have general liability of some sort, okay? All right, so what does that do for you? General liability protects the business in the event that something you do is deemed negligent, okay? So that's what general liability is for. It's for claims that are related to either general negligence or product defects. Okay? That's the purpose of general liability. Notice the key word here, negligence. Negligence. When the heavy hitter shows up at your business and says you're being sued, what they are trying to prove in court is that you did something negligent. Okay? That's the whole purpose of the trial, is to prove that you did something negligent, something that could have been avoided, but because of your actions, this happened. Okay? That's when insurance comes into play on liability. Okay? All right. It protects also against advertising and personal injury claims. Okay? Not the personal injury like you think about with, again, the heavy hitter on the auto side. Those are personal injury attorneys. It's a different kind of personal injury. All right? Personal injury and general liability for business is things like wrongful arrest. Okay? A shoplifter comes into my store and takes stuff off the shelf, and I tackle them outside, and I bring them back inside because they stole something. Turns out I got the wrong person. That's a personal injury. Okay? That's a wrongful arrest. Okay? That's what that's for. And of course, advertising injury, that's going to come into play when you're talking about Advertising. Defamation, using somebody else's logo inadvertently, something like that. Okay, that's advertising injury. All right. It also protects against claims arising from damage to rented property. If you rent space from somebody, your contract is going to say, we require you to have X amount of insurance. Okay? It's called FLL, Fire Legal Liability. You'll see that on some contracts in the insurance world. It's also called damage to premises rented to you. Okay? That protects the owner of that building for damage that's generated from your space. Okay? And then the bottom line is the most important thing there, and it's something you need to understand. The insurance company on a general liability policy has a duty to defend you in court. Okay? That's going to come into play when we talk about the coverage levels. It is the responsibility of the insurance company to provide the lawyers to fight the lawsuit. Okay? It's one of the key elements of general liability insurance. Okay?
I didn't have a question there, sir.
Yeah.
When you're talking about personal injury, does that also include somebody's trying to sue, like if they trip in our store or something of that nature?
That's going to be medical. That's not personal injury by that standpoint, okay? That's going to be medical. But if they tripped over something because of your negligence, you left that thing in the way, and it could have been moved and should have been moved. There's my able-bodied assistant passing out the candy for questions. So normally I throw them. She's like, no, we're an insurance company. Don't be throwing. So, okay. But it's a great question, and I appreciate that. But no, that's going to be covered on medical, and you'll see there's a line on the coverage levels. There's like a $5,000 or $10,000 standard coverage level for medical. Somebody gets hurt, I want you to take them by the hand to the emergency room because we want that to be paid right now by the insurance company so that it doesn't go into the liability side. Okay? All right. All right. There's also professional liability. One of my clients was just asking me about that. She's got general liability with me. She's doing a bunch of consulting now. And she said, gee, I need probably professional liability. I said, yeah, you probably do now. Okay? So that protects the company from claims related to accidental professional negligence. Again, it's a negligence. It's liability. Or misrepresentation. Okay? Doctors have a thing called medical malpractice. That is professional liability insurance. Okay? We in the insurance world have what's called errors and omissions. If I sell you an insurance policy and I didn't gather all the correct information, or I gathered all the correct information but I didn't put it all on the thing, and my insurance company comes back and says, I'm sorry, we're not going to cover that claim because we didn't know about it. We didn't know about that risk. All right? That's on me as an agent for errors and omissions, and you can come back on me and sue me directly, and I have insurance for that purpose. Okay? Every insurance agent has E&O. Okay? If you do anything else, like consulting, if you are consulting and you give really, really bad advice, that might come into the professional liability realm. Okay? Right? Again, the insurance company has a duty to defend. Okay? All right, specialty liability coverages. These are things that are available that you might need or you might not need, okay? Cyber liability, that's becoming more and more and more important, all right? If somebody hacks your database, gets all your information of your clients, you hear about those every day. In small business, it happens. There was a lawyer's office down the hall from me in my former office, and his assistant was on the computer, got one of those phishing things popped up, and they said, oh, you need to log in here because you've got a problem, blah, 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 blah. They attacked and they stole all their data. Okay, that's a big deal. Cyber takes care of that. It helps take care of that. Okay, that'll help with website stuff. That'll help with sending out mailings to people going, hey, we screwed up. You know, your information's been stolen. You know, those letters you get from people, the government mandates they send those letters. Well, cyber liability pays for those letters. Okay? It'll also help you rebuild your database if it gets corrupted or stolen, hijacked. It'll help you rebuild that kind of thing. That's cyber liability. Okay. Employment practices liability. If you have employees, you need employment practices liability. All right. That serves the purpose of, let's say I'm hiring 10 people and I interview 20. One of those 20 thinks that I didn't hire them because they're black or they're orange or they're red or they're white or green or whatever, right? And they sue me. Employment practices liability is for that. Okay? That is to protect you in the event that somebody says your hiring practices were not legit. Okay? So employment practices. Super cheap, very easy to add to a policy. Okay? Employee benefits liability. If you have employees and you do health care for them, that's a benefit that you provide. What if you're in the hospital, you're a small business owner, you're in the hospital and you forget to make the health care payment for your employee? And they go to the doctor. What's that?
Stay in the hospital.
Yeah, stay in the hospital, yeah. They go to the doctor and their claim is denied because they don't have health insurance because you didn't pay. You messed up. That's what employee benefits liability is for. If it is shown that, hey, this was an oops, that's fine. Grab a seat wherever if you like. Please, welcome. The key element here of all these liabilities is negligence. Okay? Negligence. So if you did it on purpose, the insurance company is not going to protect you. If it was an accident, the insurance company will step in and take care of that for you. Okay? All right. If you have a business involved with liquor liability is very important. Okay? I was at an event, I was at the Uncorked event. Anybody go to the Uncorked event for the chamber, the big wine event? Go next year. It's a great time, okay? We write a lot of wineries, right? So that's a big thing for us. They had a party for the vendors, for the exhibitors, and we had bartenders there. And the bartenders were there, and they were saying, hey, we're being asked more and more often now to have liability insurance. And I said, I can help you with that. I'm writing bartenders all over the city now because they're being asked. Everything's being pushed back. All of the insurance is being pushed back. Yeah.
So it says liquor liability. Does that cover like beer and wine? Because like my husband's new, or my sister-in-law's new restaurant is just going to have beer and wine, but that
you still need it.
Still the same.
Yeah, liquor is overall alcohol.
That would be the bartender would come and get that individually, or they would carry it as
the business will carry it, and then the bartenders that I write are all private bartenders that are hired by event companies and stuff.
So they're not ones that are hired by the
right.
Because then the business would have it.
The business would have it. Okay. That's right. All the wineries have it. All the brew houses have it.
This doesn't really have to do with liquor, kind of. So what about subs, like subcontractors? Are you going to go into that? Or is that do I need to insure myself because I have subcontractors in case they do something wrong? Yeah,
and the subcontractor side is going to be a little different. Great question, and thank you. And thank you. The candy lady will be around. With regard to subcontractors, you need to do everything possible to protect yourself from them screwing up, okay? Workers' comp being number one, okay? Workers' comp being number one, depending on the kind of business you're in, all right? When we write a policy for somebody, like a general liability policy, we ask the question, do you subcontract out work? How much of the work is subcontracted? All right, we want to know that. And there's a lot of areas where if it's over 10 or 15%, they won't even write it. Okay?
Won't write what?
The policy. You won't get the insurance because you subcontract too much. Or if you do, very important, if you have subcontractors, you want proof that they have insurance and they need to list you as additional insured on their policy. Okay? That's how it works with subcontractors. You want them to have their own insurance, and they need to have you listed as additional insured, and proof of that.
So in Texas, though, so if my subs are sole proprietors,
Yes.
right, they're not required necessarily to have insurance. Because I even checked before I switched to LLC, I tried to go get insurance, and they're like, no, you don't need it.
Okay, the insurance person did you a disservice if that's the case, okay?
Yeah.
If you have a business, you need insurance. All right? Sole proprietor, LLC, S Corp, Inc., doesn't matter. If you have a business, you need insurance. Okay? All right?
And what would that be called for a sub? Like what, it would just be this
General liability.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yep. Good questions. Thank you very much. All right. You had a hand up. Did you have?
So that's like the same thing with the city of Lubbock. If you have a lawn business and you get contracted with the city, it'd be the same thing.
Yeah.
We'd have our own insurance, and then they would, because we have to show proof that we have insurance.
That's right. Yeah. So we list the city as additional insured. I've done a ton of those. So yeah, we list the city or anybody else as additional insured. If you're holding an event here at the Civic Center, they require that you have them listed as additional insured. Okay? We do, it's called an Accord 25. It's a certificate of liability insurance. We send them out all day, every day. Okay? Okay. Last is farm liability. If you have a farm, a little bit of a different version of liability insurance, but it's farm liability. Okay? It's a business. A farm is a business. It's just a different version. Okay? All right. Nonprofits need liability insurance as well. And gosh, how much time? I think we had till 10:30? 10, okay. Well, we're doing okay. We're fine. I talk a lot. I apologize. I'm also a radio talk show host here in town, so I speak a lot. So, all right, so nonprofits have what we call management liability. They have directors and officers liability, all right? If you're on the board of directors for any organization, especially nonprofits, make sure they have D&O insurance. Make sure that they have protection for you for the board. I'm on the board for the Better Business Bureau here in town, okay? We have D&O, trust me. We watch that very closely. We need to have protection for directors and officers on boards, all right? The next level, fiduciary liability. If you are on the board and the board does anything to do with retirement funds and things like that, you better have fiduciary liability because you have a fiduciary responsibility to the employees of that organization. Okay? It protects the board and it protects the managers of the business. This is more often seen in the nonprofit world. Okay? Now let's talk about property insurance. Any questions on liability insurance? All of that stuff was about negligence and inadvertent stuff and all of that, making bad decisions, that sort of thing. That's all the liability side.
I just need you to repeat, you said, so the sub should have us listed as the what?
Additional insured.
Thank you.
Yeah. AI. All right, so now we'll talk about property insurance. If you own a business and there's property associated with your business, a building, a car or truck, we'll talk about that in a minute. If you got capital goods, capital inventory, you got a printer, you got a laptop, that's property, okay? So that's going to cover all that sort of thing. And then there's the one on the bottom there called inland marine. Inland marine sounds weird, right? Inland marine, why would I need that? I'm not a boat company. Inland marine is old insurance. Comes way back to Lloyd's of London, way back when it all started, when they were transporting goods. Inland marine is for tools and equipment that move from job site to job site to job site to job site. Contractor stuff, right? If you're a contractor, if you're in the lawn care company, inland marine protects your hose and rakes and your lawnmowers and all of that stuff when it's going from job site to job site. Yeah. Yeah, that's what inland marine's
I have
for.
a question. So is that like a yearly policy or just
It'll be attached to something else. Okay, it'll be attached. And I'll talk about property or policy types here in a minute, and you'll see that there's policies that have just general liability, but there's also ones that have property and liability. That's more often. Okay? Yeah.
Does that also cover, like, say, for instance, you have a bunch of line workers that work on power lines that travel internationally to help out in disaster situations? Does it cover the transfer of all those supplies and different things? Like
Inland Marine covers, yeah. Inland Marine covers that. Yep. Yep.
Product inventory speak to like restaurant food inventory?
Yes.
It does speak.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, if you've got a restaurant, you've got some interesting risks. All right, and like all the wineries we do, well, not all the wineries, but most of the wineries we write have a restaurant risk as well. They're either doing charcuterie boards or pizza or something, right? Because you don't want drunk people leaving the winery. So you feed them a little bit. Also, when you feed them, they stay longer, right? Right? So there's pluses there, right? So when you feed them, we have a separate, we're going to do a winery risk on the policy, and we're going to do a restaurant risk on the policy. We're going to cover spoilage. So if your refrigerators go down, we're going to cover spoilage. Contamination. If you're in the restaurant business and you have contamination and the city comes in and says, oh gosh, you can't feed this to the people, and now you've got a reputation risk because the city shut you down because of something that got contaminated. Right? Now it's going to pay, that's going to pay to get the word out and say, hey, no, we're a good company, we're fine, we do everything right. Look, we made everything okay. Right? It's going to help pay for that. So that kind of thing.
Under that product inventory, we have a escape room. A lot of our inventory is equipment that is in the building itself.
Yep.
Does that product inventory cover that? Or is that under?
It's going to be under what's called business personal property. All right. So that could be inventory, that could be fixtures, that could be equipment, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Good. Good questions, guys. Thank you. All right. Commercial auto. If you have vehicles, things that either, it could be trailers or anything that what we call power units, things that have motors in them, okay, then you're going to need commercial auto. All right. So motorized vehicles. If you look on your commercial auto policy, it will list all of the vehicles. Okay. And then also in the general liability portion of it, it'll say symbol 1 or symbol 7. Okay. Symbol 1 means any auto that anybody in your company drives for business is covered. That's rare. Okay, that's very rare. Symbol 7 says we only cover the vehicles that are on the list. Okay? And every driver better be listed too. Okay? On commercial auto, very important.
So
yeah.
Would that count, like if you had bought a personal vehicle, you had it wrapped with the business, would that be able to go under that, or that's just qualified under?
Could. It depends who owns the vehicle. If the business owns the vehicle, then absolutely commercial auto. If the person owns the vehicle, a little gray area there, right? Okay. The advantage, personal auto, generally 6 months. Commercial auto, 1 year policy. Don't have to worry about it going up every 6 months. Okay? So there's a plus there. All right? Obviously, your trailers and rolling stock are going to be on commercial auto. All right? Hired and non-owned. This is important. Hired autos. What do you think that is?
Delivery.
What's that?
Delivery.
No.
Livery?
Good thought, though. Good thought. Not really. Well, livery is actually commercial auto. If you do livery. And that's a special class, and it's much more difficult to insure.
No, like me, like doing Uber or renting a car.
Okay, yeah. So
Is that what you're talking about? Hiring?
renting a car, yes. All right. Uber, different story. Uber is going to be on your personal auto policy, okay? And there's a gap here. I'll give you a little insight. There's a gap here in the Uber world. When you are on the clock for Uber, waiting to get somebody to call you to go pick them up, you are in limbo. Your personal auto is sitting there going, I'm sorry, you're doing business. And Uber's going, now you don't have anybody in the car, therefore you're in a limbo world. Okay? And nobody's insuring you. You get hit by somebody, or more importantly, you're driving to pick up that person and you run into something. That could be, you could be in a no man's land. Uber's not covering it on their insurance, and your personal auto's not covering it either. There's a little thing that's been added to personal auto that says, hey, in that dwell time, we're going to cover you. Make sure you've got it if you do Uber, Lyft, something like that. Okay? Very important. All right? Personal auto. Okay? All right. Non-owned auto. First thing I did when I got an assistant in my business, I got non-owned and I put it on my business owner policy. Why? Because if I told my assistant, hey, run these to the post office and mail them, will you? And they jump in their car and they drive to the post office and they get in a wreck and they kill somebody, and the heavy hitter goes showing up at the accident and says, hey, what were you doing? And they say, well, I was on my way to go mail these for my boss. The business just got put on the hook for that claim. Okay? Non-owned protects the business in that scenario. Okay? It takes your $1 million liability policy and now extends it to that claim and the defense for that claim. All right? That's what non-owned is for. Very important. It should be on commercial auto if you have it. If you don't, you can get it on your general liability policy. Okay? Very important coverage. Non-owned. If you have anybody that drives their personal vehicle to do anything for the business, you need non-owned. Okay? Right. Questions? Yeah.
So if you have a delivery component to your business,
Yeah.
Does that fall under this or a different type?
It's really going to have a specialty coverage. Yeah. Delivery. If your person that does the delivery uses their vehicle, then the non-owned will come into play. Okay? It's a sticky area. It's a gray area. That's one of the questions also in the general liability policy. We're asking, hey, do you do deliveries? How much deliveries do you do? That kind of thing. We want to know.
Is there a maximum, kind of like the subcontract, is there a maximum that we should stay under to be able to get coverage?
I would say 20% or less.
20%.
Yeah. Yeah. It depends on the company. Depends on the habit. All right. The state of Texas says you don't have to have it. That being said, the state of Texas also has a very interesting court ruling. That interesting court ruling was, if you have workers' comp in the state of Texas and your employee does something stupid and they get hurt on the job and they sue you, the courts are going to shun them. They're going to push them back and go, no, they've got workers' comp, you're taken care of. If you don't have workers' comp, that's going to trial, baby. Okay? So there's some court precedent there that says we favor workers' comp. Okay? Yeah?
Is there a certain limit on the workman's comp that we can have?
I will show you that here in a second. Thank you for asking. By the way, subcontractors need workers' comp as well.
So I need to have it on them, not them?
No, they need to have it on themselves because workers' comp rates on payroll. Okay? And you get audited every single year. Workers' comp comes in and says, how much did you pay out in payroll? You owe us X based on your payroll. Okay? If your subs do not have workers' comp, they get included in your payroll for that audit. Okay? So you want your subs to have workers' comp, you need proof of that, and then your audit doesn't include their pay in yours.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So for like a subcontractor, if I hired them to do a job for me, do they still need to list me like as an insurer or, yeah?
Yeah. Most of the time when you get workers' comp, you would get blanket additional insured and blanket waiver of subrogation, okay? So those two things are standard. And it's a checkbox on the application. That's what people do normally. Okay, that way, if you have a contract with somebody, when we talk about blanket additional insured, I'll talk about that on some of the general liability as well. If you have blanket additional insured, if you have a, you're throwing me off back there, man. It's okay. If you have blanket additional insured, if you have a contract between the two parties that is signed, written and signed, and it says you must show me as additional insured, it's automatic. Right? So an insurance agent like myself can do the cert. Oh yeah, you've got the contract, fine. I can do the cert, send it over, everything's taken care of. We don't have to go back to the company, add them nothing. Okay, it's already built into the contract.
So as a business, so I would say that all of my subs probably don't have any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Would I set up something with you and say, okay, yes, you can be my sub. If you don't have it, am I permitted to recommend them just go to a particular company?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I get tons of those calls.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we could already have something set up with a particular insurance company so they know that our subs will be coming in.
Yeah. And of course, it's up to them if they buy it from us, right? That's not up to you.
Does it matter who pays the bill? Like, can I pay that bill to make sure?
If you would want to, sure. We don't care who pays. We only care who's insured.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no conflict of, yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't want my attorney to say, well, once you're paying their insurance, now they're an employee.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No. Very good question. Very good question. And wait and thinking as well. The key element here is, like you mentioned, can I send somebody to you, right, in that scenario? I write a lot of farmers markets all over the state. I wrote 28 farmers markets around the state. And one of the mandates for the farmers markets is all of your vendors have to have insurance and they have to list you as additional insured. Okay? And all of the vendors go, where do I get insurance? I'm on the list for 28 farmers markets. And they go, call Dan, he's probably got what you need. Okay?
Another question.
Yeah.
So if the subcontractor didn't have the insurance, could we remove them after the job is complete?
No,
Or do they have to-
no, you're on the hook. When the job is going, you're on the hook. The key element for insurance is if they get hurt on that job or they do something and break crap on that job, they damage something on that job, if they're your subcontractor, you're on the hook. That's why you want them to have insurance and to list you as additional insured so it diverts to their insurance. Okay? Keeps that claim off your back. Okay? All right, types of policies. Let me check my time here. 9:39. And we have till what, 10? All right, we're doing good. All right, types of policies. Policy types. You have a general liability policy. You can buy liability only. Okay, that exists. Okay, it's rare that people buy that. Okay, but you can buy that general liability. All right, professional liability policy. Quite often that's an addendum to something else, or like on the next one, the business owner policy, the BOP. A BOP has property coverage and liability coverage. Okay, if you have, there are certain types of professional liability I can cover on my BOP. Okay, as an addendum. All right, things like hairdressers. I can do hairdressers and barbers all day for professional liability. You may not think they have professional liability. They burn your hair when they're doing a color. That's professional liability. Okay? Okay? So you need coverage for that kind of thing. The business auto policy is a standalone generally. And then commercial package policy takes all of these things and gives you a package of each one all kind of combined. Okay, but all of the policies actually have their own policy numbers most of the time, but it's a package together. My farm product is a commercial package policy. It covers residences, other structures, business liability, personal liability, farm liability, right? All of that stuff. It's a package of things. All right, so that's all a package policy is. So if somebody's quoting you a CPP, a package policy, they're saying, okay, I've got your business auto, that's a part of that package. I've got your general liability, that's a part of that package. I've got your inland marine, that's a part of that package. Okay, and it's just a one-stop shop. The problem with a package policy as opposed to a business owner policy, those are two used interchangeably quite often. The problem is if they miss something on the package policy, it's not covered. On the BOP, there's going to be additional stuff covered automatically. Okay? So a lot of the time, the BOP's a better solution, tends to be a little cheaper. But the package policy, if you got a lot of moving parts, that way what have to do.
Do you recommend to have vehicles owned and insured by the company or by people using their own vehicles, I guess, to do company work?
It really depends on the kind of business you're in. And I mean,
As far as liability goes, I guess.
I recommend that the people that use the vehicle the most be insured. Okay? So if it's personal vehicle, then they should be insured and non-owned is going to come into play. Okay? If it's business vehicles that you are lending out to people to drive, then that's going to be commercial auto. Okay? If you have a cleaning service, let's say you have a cleaning service and you've got a fleet of vehicles that the girls or guys, I guess, come, they pick up a car, they go to the job site, they do the jobs, they bring it back at the end of the day, that's commercial auto. Okay? If they are under contract with you and they go and clean houses for you and you 1099 them, which you can't really do unless you let them go on whenever they want to and all of that stuff, new rules, right? If you 1099 them and say, hey, I need you to clean this house on Thursdays and I need you to clean this house on Fridays, but you pick the time, whatever, work it out with the owner, that's fine. And they take their own vehicle, your non-owned is going to take care of that. Okay? Right?
So can you have a company vehicle that a subcontractor uses, or is that typically just what an employee uses?
You can have a company car vehicle that a subcontractor uses. Generally, that's not done. But that driver's got to be listed on your policy. So if they are a regular user of that vehicle, it may make sense. But generally speaking, you're not going to do that. Okay? Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
What would you recommend for, we also have a building that we rent the spaces. Where do they need to have their own coverage as well, or should we, clearly we're going to have insurance on our building, but the question is for each tenant.
Okay, yeah. So if you own the building and you have tenants, okay, that is called lessor's risk. Okay? Lessors, L-E-S-S-O-R, lessor's risk. Okay? All of your tenants need to have their own insurance, but when we look at that, we look at the building as an aggregate, and we look at every risk class that's in that building, and we list them all. Okay? So there are certain things you don't want in your building. All right? High traffic stuff you don't want in your building. 24-hour exposures you do not want in your building. Okay? Those crank your insurance up on that building. All right? You do not want a liquor store in your building. Okay? Unfortunately, you don't want a liquor store in your building because that's a high risk entity.
Would a vape shop be included?
Vape shop is not one of the winners in the commercial risk world. CBD store, even worse. Okay? Now, if it's only 10% of the overall building, not going to hurt you too bad. Okay? If it's 50% of your building, you're screwing yourself. Okay?
What about work from home?
What about work from home?
As far as having the insurance policies.
There is a class of general liability for work from home type businesses, okay? And it is very affordable. I just quoted a lady that's a Mary Kay lady, okay? She works from home, right, obviously. Generally speaking, we don't like, in the work from home world, we don't like people to come to your house. We're okay with you having a desk there and doing stuff, but we really don't like them coming into your house. We would prefer that you meet them off-site somewhere, okay? So, work from home insurance, the lady I just quoted for the Mary Kay stuff, she needed it because she wants to do a farmer's market, and of course they said you have to have liability insurance, and she said, where do I get it? And she said, call Dan, okay? Down in Austin. And I found her a work from home insurance for $333 a year. Okay? Very affordable. Okay? Okay. Now that being said, if she was selling soaps and things that weren't a work-from-home business, if she was making goat milk soap, that's a $1,000 a year policy. Completely changes the dynamic.
And what's that going to cover, that work-from-home insurance?
It's going to cover general liability. It's going to cover some professional liability. If she is working with you and helping you do a facial or something, and she burns your face, it's going to cover that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Typical coverage levels. Hey, we are rocking here. And with all the questions, so thank you guys. Typical coverage levels, general liability. You will hear the phrase $1 million, $2 million. That is the most common coverage. $1 million per occurrence, $2 million aggregate. Okay? In other words, $1 million to the first person that gets on the claim list, $2 million total for all the rest of them. Okay? $1 million in personal and advertising injury. $100,000 is standard for fire legal liability. Damage to premises rented to you. Okay? There is a building over on 98th Street that requires $1 million in fire legal liability. Dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But they require it, and people sign on the dotted line and say, oh, okay. Right? 100,000 is common. 300,000 is not unusual. Okay? $1 million, crazy. You shouldn't have to do that. You're not insuring the building, right? The medical liability, I was asked about that earlier. Somebody trips and falls and gets hurt. Medical liability, $5,000 on every policy. Get them to the doctor. We want to pay that. Okay? We have a farm client. We've got a big ranch out near the 4-6s, and they brought in a guy to do a barbecue. And the wind caught the barbecue hood, drove it down, cut his finger off. And they called me and said, what do we do? I said, get him to the doctor. We're going to pay for that. Don't worry about it. Okay? That's what the medical's for. We don't want... That's our first line of defense. We want to pay that medical claim right now and be done with it so it doesn't go into that $1 million. And so we don't have to hire lawyers and all that crap. Okay? We want you to use that $5,000. Okay? And then $2 million products and completed operations. So for our contractors, if you have something that is completed, then you've got $2 million in coverage for that completed thing. There are special endorsements. There is a particular company here in town that requires, what's the phrase? There's two different endorsements for completed operations. One is I complete the job and I walk away. That's no longer on me. Okay? The other is I complete the job and for the rest of my life, my insurance is covering that. Okay? That's a special endorsement for completed operations. And it's way more expensive, as you can imagine. Okay? There's one company here in town that requires it. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like on the completed operations, one of the bids that I did do, they're requiring it to cover for 2 years after I've completed it.
That's going to be that special one, and it's going to be a lot more expensive. So when you do your bid, make sure you include that, right? Make sure you realize, hey, we got to cover that.
Can this be a one-time deal, or does this stay on my policy?
That's for that particular application.
Okay.
So you're going to pay for that, and it's going to be for that 1 year on the policy. You don't have to have it in perpetuity.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. All right. Why do we do 1 million, 2 million? There's an option there to do 100,000, 200,000. Remember I mentioned that duty to defend? If you have a $100,000 liability policy, we're going to write the check and be done with you. Okay? The insurance company will write that $100,000 check all day. We're not going to pay our attorneys. We're not going to defend you. You are on your own. We paid them and we're done. You got $1 million, we're on the hook for $1 million bucks. We're going to fight that. Okay? So you want a minimum of $1 million, $2 million. Okay? Yeah, no, go ahead.
Say that I write a contract up, do we need to have like a contract in place and then maybe send it to you and say, this is what we agreed to, so there's no other?
Yeah, it's a really good idea to reach out to your insurance agent, especially if they know what they're doing in this world, and say, hey, here's what the contract says. Do you see any gotchas? Because we look at that stuff all the time. Yeah. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Obviously, I can't give you legal advice, but I can surely give you insurance advice. Okay? Yeah.
We were talking earlier about coverage for damage to premises rented to you.
Yeah.
I bet it's really common for people to read that on their contract and think they're getting property insurance on their general liability.
Right.
But it's not the case.
It's not. Yeah, you're not protecting yourself in any way for damage to your property. That's property insurance on your policy, okay? This is damage to the other guy's property.
If you go to a hotel for a summit or something like that,
Yeah.
renting that area for general liability will follow you.
It does, and the good news about general liability is it covers you in all 50 states. Your general liability goes wherever you go. Property, maybe not. Okay, property might not go with you. Okay, general liability goes wherever you go. If I've got a farm that's in Kansas and Texas and New Mexico, I can write all that on one piece of paper on the liability side, but I've got different paper for New Mexico and Texas and Kansas for the property side. Okay, good point, thank you. All right, commercial auto. Same reason, we've got a duty to defend. You know, the state minimum on auto is $30,000 per accident, $60,000 per overall accident. So 30 per person, 60 per accident, and then $25,000 for property damage. I don't write the state minimum for regular personal auto. I won't write it. It leaves my clients uninsured, underinsured, okay? My minimum's $50, $150, and I'm starting to go up to $100, $300, $100 because of all the $80,000 trucks on the road, okay? So in the commercial world, you can go pretty low, but we always recommend 1 million combined single limits. So where we talk about the 30, 60, 25, we're going to do 1 million across all of those. That's what that means, combined single limits, okay? 2,500 to 25,000 in personal injury protection, PIP. That's no fault insurance for somebody that gets hurt, okay? 2,500 minimum up to 25,000. And then uninsured, underinsured. Somebody that's got 30, 60, 25 is underinsured. And so if your $100,000 BMW was hit by somebody that's got $25,000 in property damage coverage, your underinsured will pick up the other 75 if you have enough. Okay, so that's the basic coverages for commercial auto. Okay, 1 million CSL is the key number. Property coverages, you want full replacement cost if you can get it, generally. We're going to have an 80% to 100% valuation. Normally, for replacement cost, we want 100% of the value covered, okay? But we're going to give you a little leeway, because things change, right? So 80 to 100% depending on the company you're working with. 90 de facto almost all the time, at a minimum, okay? You can also do depreciated coverage, or what we call actual cash value. That's where we depreciate the coverage based on the length of time whatever's been there, right? And then there's this little known thing called functional replacement cost. I have a lady that's got an art studio down off of 19th Street. Those buildings are ancient, okay? I mean ancient. And the valuation on that building is like $250,000 because of the square foot. If that thing burned to the ground, she's not going to replace it exactly the way it was. She'll slap a metal building up there that's going to cost her $100,000. That's functional replacement cost. What does it cost to functionally replace this building if I don't want to do it the exact same way it was? Okay? So it's an option. Okay. Really only going to be used for older structures. Okay? Okay.
But
And,
if there's
yeah.
a historical requirement.
Oh, that's a whole nother animal.
Do that.
You can't do that, no.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's historical, yeah, that jacks it way up. Yeah. Because it's full replacement cost plus the additionals of all the historical stuff you got to do. Yeah.
Yeah, make an appointment with me.
All right. Okay, yeah. And of course, all of these are subject to deductible. Liability generally has no deductible. Okay? Now, that's not always true. Some liability has what we call retention. Retention is deductible in the liability world. Okay? If you got $1 million umbrella, it's going to have a $10,000 retention. That's your deductible for your $1 million umbrella. By the way, umbrella is over the top of all these other things I'm talking about. You have to have something under it in order for there to be an umbrella. Okay? Otherwise, the umbrella falls over. Right? So something's got to be holding it up. And all these other policies hold up the umbrella. Very common misconception. Oh, I have an umbrella. No, you've got the underlying coverage first. An umbrella is a liability policy. Very cheap. You need an extra $1 million? You get a $1 million umbrella over the top of what you have. Your underlying is going to pay first, and then if we have to, we can go into the umbrella. Okay? Right? Workers' comp. You want 1 million bodily injury, 1 million bodily injury by disease, 1 million bodily injury by disease per employee. So you want 1 million, 1 million, 1 million. These are standard coverages for businesses. That's it. Questions?
Can you go back?
Yeah.
To the previous slide? Just a second.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for all the questions. I do appreciate it. Yeah. The who? Oh yeah, on the commercial, my wife is also an agent, by the way. When you have a commercial auto and you list your drivers, we're going to run a motor vehicle report on every one of those drivers. Okay? That's right, to see if they've got accidents, issues. We need to know. Your policy is going to rate on those drivers. So it's important you understand that. Yeah.
It sounds like maybe if you're a business and you're quoting insurance against your current agent, it might be the case that you get a cheap quote, but they haven't ran the MVR yet. So
Yeah.
you should always be careful of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What you're getting include all the at-faults your employees might have.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it will get you in the end. They can write that policy and the company has like a 60-day look back and they'll run all those MVRs. And guess what? You just got a big bill.
They can get you a price.
Yeah.
It's not always accurate.
Yeah.
I'll guess I'll be giving you calls so we can sit down together.
Please do. And my booth's down here. By the way, I didn't talk about life insurance for businesses. I have information on that down at my booth. Okay? And there are life insurance needs for businesses and disability as well. Okay? Yeah, thank you.